Hello, everyone. This is Eric Pennington, and welcome to the Spirit of EQ podcast. We're glad that you've tuned in. A few things we wanted to tell you at the beginning of the show, and that's this podcast was created to be a tool to help you, primarily to discover and grow your EQ. Science and our own lived experiences confirm that the better we are at managing our emotions, the better we're going to be at making decisions, which leads to a better life. And that's something we all want. We're glad that you've taken out the time today to listen and hope that something that you hear will lead to a breakthrough. Hey, one last thing. We'd really appreciate a review on whichever platform you use to listen. And if you want to, leave some comments about what you heard today, as well as follow and subscribe. That way you won't miss a single episode as we continue this journey. And with that, the show begins. Jeff, good to see you again.
Hi, Eric.
You sent this over to me not long ago, and I, as you always do, you tend to give these titles. I'm going, what, wait, how, when, where? But I always know there's something really powerful with it.
It might be scary for some people to know what's going on up there, but
well, I am not afraid. But I got to
right.
ask you. You said, "When life gives you pears," and I'm thinking, well, wait a minute. I thought it was like when life gives you lemons, you make lemonade or something. But I know there's more to it. So tell the audience a little bit about when life gives you pears. Where's that coming from?
Well, I was actually last week strolling through my Kindle for something to read, and I found this book that I'd probably bought a year ago. And the name of the book was When Life Gives You Pears. And I'll get into a little bit more of that, so it actually makes much sense. But it was written by Jeanne and Gaffigan. If you're familiar,
that's Jim Gaffigan's wife?
Jim Gaffigan's wife.
Okay.
He's one of my favorite comedians.
He's very funny.
Very, very funny. And she is probably funnier than him. But
now, did you mention to me, I think offline, is she part of the writing of what he does too?
Yeah, she's been a writer.
As in writing material.
Material for him.
Right.
She's also was involved with him. They had, which just really struck me, but they had a series on, I think CBS, maybe not, but called The Jim Gaffigan Show. Mm-hmm. That was about his life, and she was the producer and co-writer of that. And I'll just give a little bit about their character here. Okay. After the second season, the show wasn't canceled. They said, we can't do it anymore because we have no family life.
I want to say that I have read interviews with him, and he always seems to be very, very focused in on his family. Mm-hmm. Even I know he jokes about them a lot, and the humor. But
well, remember, a lot of those are written by his wife. So
yeah.
So it all has to pass muster before he says it on muster.
Yeah. Yes,
muster, not mustard. Mustard. So anyway, in this book, she finds out through some just medical things, minor things that were happening, and luckily they led her to the neurologist and the neurosurgeon, and she had a pear-shaped tumor in the back of her brain. So that's where the pear in the title comes from.
Okay.
And this book is about her journey through this, of just everything. She puts everything out there of this journey, and it's really inspiring to me how she got through it, and just a lot of good things about that. It says a lot about their character. But so I thought it would be interesting to talk about that today.
Kind of tackle, and it would seem to me that that's pretty brilliant to put a different take on a somewhat heart-wrenching situation. And I know you told me that the tumor wasn't cancerous, but I don't care if cancer or no cancer.
Well, if it would have continued to grow, it would have killed her.
Okay.
It was destroying things in her brainstem or squeezing them.
Gotcha.
So it was very serious.
Okay. So let's talk about a little bit around what we can learn maybe from the book, from your reading, your interpretations. Certainly, I want to talk about it from an EQ perspective. And as everyone out in our audience probably knows, EQ is sort of a placeholder title.
It is.
You know, it's not this emphatic, it's this or it's not this. It's very dynamic in nature. And you mentioned that you got some things from her from an EQ perspective that were not overtly stated that way.
No, I mean, I have no idea if she is aware of EQ.
Oh, sure.
I would imagine she probably is because she's a very intelligent person. But just some of the ways she handled things, recognizing where she was emotionally through this and able to deal with it and focus on the things that were important. You know, the most important thing for her was to get back to being a mom again. Things like that, having empathy for the people that we're helping.
As in the practitioners, the medical community?
Visitors. Because
okay.
I'll talk about that in a little bit too.
Okay.
And she was also aware when she wasn't doing real well with emotional intelligence. Like I said, she didn't say it that way,
right?
But she was able to see when she was unnecessarily mean to people, that kind of thing. Things that you just see that she was, with all this going on, was still aware. She was aware when she was in a bad place. She was aware when she was in a better place. So she just kind of, to me, exhibited an EQ practice of someone that is...
And self-awareness is a big part of that.
Yeah. I mean, emotional literacy, recognizing patterns. Optimism. She had optimism through this. And I'm not going to put words in her mouth, but to me, her goal or noble goal, I don't know, we can really say that, was to get back to her family. So she exhibited a lot of things that we've talked about in how somebody is successful in the emotional intelligence field. Even in the midst of this life-threatening, there were several times with infections and things that she could have easily died. So through all this. She, like, the one thing that I forgot about this.
Okay.
She could not swallow anything for 4 months.
Oh my gosh.
Water included, because of the damage that had done to her brainstem. That part wasn't working right, the nerves and things. So they fed her IV and then a stomach, all that stuff.
I don't want to take you too far off, Jeff, but what was her outlook during that one? Because when I think about that, it just like, how do you not swallowing?
Okay, when she was able, this is how she would handle it. When she was able to get up, she was in ICU for a long time. When she was able to get up and they would take her for the walks down the highway with the IV bag and everything, there was a picture of a fruit on the wall. And she would always go, smack her lips when she saw the fruit, because she couldn't talk at that time either. But just making a joke out of, oh, those look so good, but I can't have any. And, talk about, what she's going to get when she gets better.
Yeah. Boy, what perspective.
And she made some other things that probably the Good Mom Association probably wouldn't be happy with. That, you know what? Junk food ain't always bad.
Right. Yeah.
So those are some of the ways that I saw how she exhibited the self-awareness, the empathy for herself, compassion for herself. Yeah. And it was just really, really interesting to see that.
Jeff, what is the SEQ Development Report?
I'm glad you asked me that, Eric. The SEQ Development Report is something that we here at Spirit of EQ have developed to blend the idea of emotional intelligence with a person's spiritual life. And we're not talking about religion, we're talking about how they connect with themselves, other people, and the world around them.
Why is it important?
I think it's important because it allows someone to see where they stand, to give them information about maybe parts of their life they may need to work on, parts of their life that they're really doing well, and learn to leverage it. And it just gives a person a better way of getting through the world.
So how do you get this report?
Well, first, you need to contact us. Info at Spirit of EQ is just a great way to do it. Then you would take an assessment, 15, 20 minutes. done online. And then after that, the report requires a debrief to go through all the things in it because it's got a ton of information. And then if you want to further your journey, we can do coaching and things like that with you down the road. And that's basically it.
Cool. Thanks, Jeff. And we'll be back to the episode after this. And now back to the episode. So let's talk a little bit about community and stealing from our SEQ sort of lingo and reference point, the idea of belonging. She talked a bit about, or she wrote about, the importance of family and friends, and that
probably half of the book was about this. She's the oldest of 9, I believe it was.
Okay.
And Jim is he's one of 5, and then they had 5 kids at the same time.
Okay.
But the way the family rallied around her when this was going on, the whole time she was in the ICU, she was never there alone. There was always a friend or a family. They had schedules set up. One of I think it was one of her sisters ran that. They had people, taking care of the kids, taking care of Jim, all this stuff that was going on, so that to help her heal mentally and physically. Just the way this was surrounded, and she talks a lot about the people, who the people were, not just their names, but who the people were that were helping out with this. And it was just really interesting. And it's.
Do you think that's something that she nurtured along the way, even in the times of good health? Meaning, I mean, we all talk about, or we think to ourselves potentially, right, that, so-and-so will be there for me, so-and-so will take care of this if I ever needed it. And oftentimes we end up taking those relationships for granted. So I wonder if did she plant any of those seeds of love before, getting sick? Or
I think you mentioned the belonging. From what I can see from these families and these friends, they all belonged. Not just because of her, but I think there was just a sense of belonging to this group, tribe, whatever you want to call it. And when what happened with her, that's what they rallied around.
Yeah.
I mean, people put their jobs on hold for her.
Yeah.
And things like that. And, it was just amazing to see how this worked out.
This is the part where I go, this story makes me think about the importance of, when you're going through life, to make sure that the things that you're investing in are things that actually will return something powerful. And what I mean by that, Jeff, is that, and I'll never forget the story, and I'm trying to remember the name of the person, unimportant at this point, but it went something like, don't wait until you get on your death situation to realize that your organization is not going to be in that room with you, as in your work,
right?
The employer, that kind of thing.
There might be some people from your work, but that means you've connected on a different level with them.
Exactly. And the rarity of that would speak to why it is important to, wherever you know that there is a connection, that you nurture that, and that you build the kind of health that when the time arrives, and I do believe it is not a question of if, it is when we hit a wall, when we stumble and fall, that we would have people. And I understand the dynamics of the demands of life and our pursuits and all of the rest. I'm just saying the intentionality part needs to kick in to where you recognize, again, when you're down and out, who's going to come by your side.
And I think that works when there's a couple ways to look at it. The quid pro quo, that's not what we're talking about. I'm not going to go help you, Eric.
If you help, yeah.
Expecting
that you will Mm-hmm.
I help you because I really genuinely care and love you.
Yeah.
And that's as far as it goes at that point. But if I've invested in you now, and then hopefully you'll invest back in me when the time comes. But it has to be done genuinely.
Have you found that to be true, that typically it happens that way in your life?
Yeah.
Because I agree. I agree that typically those that I have invested in have returned that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, don't get me wrong. I have had times where I've made the mistake of like, wow, I wish I could have that investment back because this person, this person is not what they appeared to be.
Right.
But on the whole, yeah, I would say my lived experience says if you make the investment, you will get the return.
And I think it's important to remember this investment is not just, Eric, I'm investing in you when you're having problems. It's, I enjoy being with you, and you're an important person to me when you're doing well, too.
And I got to tell you, Jeff, and I try to make it a habit, and sometimes from an embarrassing perspective, and I have one specific friend that's going through my mind right now. I mean, I originally worked with her like 30 years ago, and we stayed friends after I had moved to a different area, she moved to a different area, all that kind of stuff. But we were really consistent about staying in touch and, on and on. But I hit the proverbial, oh my gosh, I haven't talked to so-and-so for, right? And in my case, it was almost 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I reached out to her. Ironically, she was in France at Normandy for the 80th.
Oh.
And she said, glad to hear from you. I'll catch up when I get back from Europe. But it makes me realize the importance of the intentionality of even those small things, right?
Right.
I mean, I don't think we're always going to be able to have this grand, we're going to spend an inordinate amount of time together. But I think there's a tremendous investment made when you let people know that you're thinking of them.
Right.
And
that's I got a big sense of that from this story.
Yeah.
Because she talked about her experiences with these people before this happened. And just it's just an amazing story.
So what about her openness in sharing the journey? And I don't want to elevate her because her last name is Gaffigan, the fame, fortune, and celebrity type thing. But, I would imagine if you were someone of fame, you would probably want to keep stuff really private, and you would circle the wagons, so to speak, right?
Mm-hmm.
But she was very open about the sharing piece. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I don't think she ever actually said it in so many words, but I think she wanted whoever reads this book to understand the people that were involved, including the doctors, the other caregivers that they had, and just all that. But she wanted people to see that with some strength, with some friends, people around you, that you can get through these things. I think that was the important thing for her to do. That was the important reason for her to do this, is to share this story of being able to get through this very, very challenging thing and come out of it on the other side with this amazing support group.
Mm-hmm.
And with her own internal strength, which she exhibited through this.
Did she allude to the scary part of the journey? Because you mentioned that there were, it wasn't like just a walk in the park, we'll just remove it and then you'll be fine in a couple of weeks. This is obviously something that had major impact. Did she speak of how she handled that part?
She was very open with, because this went from, I can't hear in one ear, to you've got this pear-shaped thing in your brain.
Mm-hmm.
And she, talking about sitting in the doctor's office and how scary it was sitting there with her husband, Jim, just all this that she would rightly so be scared about. She didn't try to make her sound like a hero.
Right. She wasn't in denial about the fear factor of it. But I noticed in what you've said here in this episode that she seems to have relied on humor, laughter, as maybe a co-pilot as she was going through this experience. Was that something you took away from it?
Yeah, because she's shared other stories, like she's just getting to be home, and they decided to adopt 2 puppies.
Oh my gosh!
And she's basically said, "How crazy are we?"
That one to me would that would register to being, "Are you kidding me?"
Because one of the stories she talked about, one of their kids wanted a puppy, always wanted a puppy, and she decided, I can't. Once as she's going through this, we got to get a puppy. And they ended up with 2. She did things like she thanked the pear, she just called it the pear, for a whole bunch of things that had happened through this.
Meaning they were like the catalyst for, the pear was a catalyst for these various
things that have happened to her.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was just a really amazing book. The other thing I haven't mentioned, total renewal in her faith. She was a person of faith before. Just the coincidences happened because of that. They weren't going to let her come home unless they had a registered nurse at the house, because she had a tracheotomy and a feeding tube thing, and that fell through. And they're trying to figure out what it was. And a nun that she happened to know just happened to walk by, and they got to talking about it. And the nun goes, "I'm a registered nurse." Just these things, and she attributes that to her faith.
A little bit of that Carl Jung synchronicity happening there.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
But it was inspiring to see or to read about her going through this, and it makes them. I would really like to learn more. I would love to just sit down and dinner with them, because she also, you mentioned his humor about how bad a dad he is, and this, that, and the other thing.
Right.
She goes, "That is not even remotely true." He is the best.
Truly self-depreciating humor only.
Yeah. But he goes, "No, he isn't that way." Just he kept a level head and his humor through the whole thing.
Interesting. Well, Jeff, as always, it's been a great show. And for our audience, we look forward to the next time we're together. Take care. Hi, everyone. This is Eric Pennington with The Spirit of EQ. I'm not introducing a new episode today. I'm here to tell you some things that might help you. Jeff, you're with me as always. So
yes.
How do people get in touch with us?
Well, the best way is just send us an email at info@spiritofeq.com.
That's awesome. Jeff, I was also thinking about reviews, and I'm notoriously bad at asking for them, so reviews on all of the platforms, wherever you get your podcasts.
Yes.
Do you think that'd be good?
I think that would be great, because one, that will help us learn how to make better ones. And it's always good for us.
So we're not the perfect podcast hosts?
We're close.
Okay, all right. But
not,
still,
not totally
we want
perfect.
your feedback.
But it also might let us know a new subject. Hey, we need to dig deeper into that.
Yeah.
So let us know what you think.
Cool. We really appreciate that. As always, too, there is social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, and we also have a YouTube channel. Those also have mechanisms or options for you to be able to leave a comment, a like, or those kind of things. Just want to make sure that you know how to get in touch with us. Right, Jeff?
Right. We appreciate you all.
Thank you. Once again, we really appreciate you tuning in today. One of the things that Jeff and I want to bring to your attention as well is that when we created this podcast, it was not intended to take the place of a clinician. In other words, if you find yourself in a place where there's something deeper going on or something that you cannot solve on your own, we do recommend that you reach out to a clinician of some sort. This podcast is purely opinion-based, and it is rooted in the desire to help you along your path in whatever way we can. However, it is never going to replace, nor should it ever be looked at as a replacement for clinical help in any way. Thanks again for tuning in.